This school year is almost over, but before you head home for the summer holidays, you and your classmates must survive the last few days of classes. Although for some students, their last day at school might just be their very last day alive. From cannibalistic classmates to deadly teachers, here are 3 bone-chilling true last day of school tales to keep you up at night. Number 3. The Cannibal Teacher. Imagine heading to your local school one last time before the summer holidays, only to find out that your favorite teacher has disappeared. After all these years of teaching, why would Mr. Williams suddenly decide to quit right before the end of the year? And what happened to his replacement, Miss Simmons? Why was she hired so suddenly? Little did you know, Mr. Williams didn't quit. He was fired, and not for any reason you'd imagine. After several failed attempts, Mr. Williams had finally been caught trying to feed human flesh to his students. In the early 1970s, a teacher named Gary Ridgeway taught at Franklin High School in Seattle, Washington. He seemed like a nice guy at first, and was even considered by his colleagues to be an outstanding teacher. However, his co-workers soon noticed a strange behavior in him. Whenever they saw Ridgeway eating his lunch in the staff room, it always looked like there were small pieces of something in his mouth. Despite this bizarre habit, Gary Ridgeway was well liked by both his students and fellow teachers. So, no one really thought much of it, until one student came forward with a shocking statement. A young girl claimed that while she was on a field trip to a museum with her class, she had seen Mr. Ridgeway put a small piece of raw meat into his mouth. At the time, everyone dismissed her claims as just a child's fantasy. But when another student came forward with a similar story, school authorities decided to launch an investigation. To everyone's shock, Gary Ridgeway was arrested after being found guilty of second-degree murder. It turned out that over a period of 10 years, he had lured at least 48 girls from various schools into his car and strangled them. Then he disposed of their bodies in wooded areas around Seattle. He even admitted to investigators that he kept some of his victims' body parts to eat. The police were horrified to discover that the teacher had also saved some of his victims' bones and teeth, which he kept in boxes labeled with their names. In court, Ray Sigway pleaded guilty to 49 murders and was sentenced to 876 years in prison. It is safe to say that all the students of Franklin High School breathed a sigh of relief on their last day of school that year. Number 2. The Vanishing Class. For our next story, we head to Australia in 1970, where 13-year-old Yvonne Toohey was attending her final day at Bexley Public School. She had just finished her final exam and was looking forward to the long summer holidays ahead of her. As she and her classmates made their way to the schoolyard, they could hear the loud cheers coming from inside. There must have been a party happening in the classroom that they weren't invited to. Yvonne couldn't wait to get inside and see what was going on. But as she approached the door, she saw a horrifying sight. Her entire class and all of her teachers were gone. The classroom was completely empty. At first, Yvonne thought that they were all playing a prank on her, hiding and waiting for her to walk by, so they could jump out and yell, "Gotcha!" But when she opened up the other classroom doors, they were empty, too. Where was everybody? Yvonne ran outside to tell her parents, who were waiting in the car, but they were nowhere to be seen. In fact, nobody was anywhere to be seen. The entire school had vanished. The cars in the parking lot were still there, but all of the students and staff had disappeared without a trace. A full-scale search and rescue operation was launched, but despite the best efforts of the emergency services and dozens of volunteers, no trace of the missing people was ever found. What happened to the students and staff of Bexley Public School remains one of Australia's most enduring mysteries. The only things left behind were several apple cores and some pieces of paper that had been used as... But the question is, what happened to them? Some believe that the entire school simply vanished due to a freak wormhole that suddenly opened up and sucked everyone inside. Others believe that an alien spaceship landed near the school and beamed the people inside it aboard. One of the strangest theories is that the people of Bexley didn't vanish at all, but instead became part of a secret government experiment known as Project Looking Glass. This theory is based on a leaked CIA document that described a simulation exercise involving the disappearance of an entire school. According to the document, the purpose of the exercise was to test the government's ability to control the media and maintain public order in the event of a national crisis. Could this top-secret project have gone wrong and somehow trapped the students and staff of Bexley Public School in an alternate dimension forever? Or were they simply abducted by aliens and taken to a distant world where they now live as slaves? We may never know the truth, but one thing is for sure, if you're ever at an empty school, don't go exploring because you never know what you might find. Number 1. The Killing Curse. For our final story, we head to Robstown, Texas, On May 1920, a group of children were playing near the railroad tracks when they heard the sound of an approaching train. They ran to the nearest level crossing and looked both ways to make sure the coast was clear. When they saw that there were no cars or trains coming, they ran across the tracks and continued playing. But just a few seconds later, a freight train came barreling over the hill and smashed into them. Of the 9 children playing, 7 were killed instantly. The 2 who survived were rushed to the hospital, but sadly, one of them died a few days later. As you can imagine, the town of Robstown was absolutely devastated by the tragedy, and everyone was looking for someone to blame. Some blamed the train driver for not sounding the horn or braking in time. Others blamed the children for playing near the tracks in the first place. But little did they know that there was another force at work here, a malevolent entity that had been haunting the railroad tracks for years. For decades, the railroad tracks had been the site of strange and unexplained phenomena. People reported seeing ghostly apparitions walking along the tracks and hearing the sound of phantom trains in the middle of the night. Some even claimed that the tracks themselves were cursed, bringing bad luck to anyone who crossed them. The tragic death of the 9 children only added to the legend, and many began to believe that the ghost of one particular child was responsible. They say that the spirit of a young girl named Hattie Lou Campbell haunts the railroad tracks. Hattie Lou was killed in a similar accident back in 1906, and her ghost is said to be the source of the curse. Some believe that she is responsible for the deaths of the 7 children, and others claim that she simply wants to warn people away from the dangerous tracks. Well, that about wraps things up for this video. But if you didn't get your fill of terror, be sure to check out more content for more spine-chilling tailies. And with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.